What I want to do is I want to take apart those three words first so that we know what we're talking about. I'm a simple person, and I like to know simply what it is that we're trying to get to. So, wisdom. Wisdom is a moral as well as intellectual quality, more than mere intelligence or knowledge. Wisdom is the power to see and the inclination to choose the best and the highest goal, together with the surest means of attaining it. The wisdom is to choose the best and the highest goal, together with the surest means of attaining it. Grace. Grace is a virtue that comes from God. It's unmerited, divine assistance given to us for regeneration and sanctification. Path. Well, we know a path is something we walk on, but I think today we're talking about path is our life. So, it's how do we use these things in our life? So, when we talk about our life, people talk about their life in testimonies and stories. And I like to do that because if Jesus used parables, then I guess it's good enough for us, right? So, and what I love about parables, if you think back to your earliest memories, you remember the stories that Jesus told. Feeding the 5,000, the man by the pool of Bethesda. All these the lamp post and the oil. So I think that it helps you understand the Word of God, and it helps you understand the person. Just like we run around, and we are going to steal that little icebreaker, because when you know something about somebody, you start to build relationships, and you see them in a different way. And that's why I always like to encourage people, listen, you know what? Don't ever be fooled by what you see, whether it's negative or positive, because you just don't know what that person has walked in their life. You don't know what they are going through. You just don't know, okay? And so when you've been through a little something, then you start to realize, wait a minute, they may have had a really, really difficult situation in their life. So I want to open up with a story. Once upon a time, there was a 5-year-old little girl. She was the big sis to 2 baby brothers, and every day she would walk from Our Lady of Sorrows Catholic Elementary School, across the playground, through the field, and over a bridge that connected 2 sides of a brook. One day, as she was walking home, the little girl stopped, and she gazed into the water, and she thought, if I fell into this water, nobody would miss me. 5. And her next thought, I think, which is even more disturbing, was, if I fell in, the world would be better off. For a 5-year-old kid, those are some pretty, deep thoughts and damaging thoughts. But you see, this is where it all begins. The battlefield is in our mind. This is where Satan moves. Well, this same little girl grew into a spirited young woman. She was a woman, though, that craved attention. She craved love and acceptance. And when the first chance arose for her to escape, she took it. You say, well, how do you know so much about this little girl and this woman? Because I was that little girl. You see, as far back as I can remember, I always thought there was something wrong with me. Always thought there was something wrong with me. A lot of people ask me, they're like, well, what happened to you? I mean, what happened to you? Why at 5 did you feel that way? I mean, were you abused? Were you... I can say this, that I came from a home that had an atmosphere of conditional love. Conditional love is, I'll love you if. I'll love you if. If you bring home good grades, I'll love you. If you clean the house the way I want you to, I will love you. If you don't sass me back, I will love you. But if you do anything that I don't like, I will withdraw my love from you, and I will make it very clear to you that you do not get my love when you act that way. Now, I want to make it clear today that I am not here to bash my parents, okay? But if we don't know where we came from, baby, we're going to end right back up there again. So I've got to say, look, there's some cycles that have been broken. They did not do what they should have done, but they did the best that they could do, okay? And you've got to remember that they And as the years have gone by, I know they're remorseful for some of the things. But as a 5-year-old little girl, I was always trying to live up to something, and I didn't even know what the something was. I mean, I'm like, what, you know? So, you know, you say, I always felt like I was alone. I felt like, gosh, I wish I knew what this thing was, you know? And, you know, being alone has a lot of repercussions. Whether you are alone or you feel you're alone, it has a lot of repercussions. Now, some of the things that happened to me were things that even isolated me more, okay? I remember one day as I was walking through, you know, the playground and coming home and coming down the street, there's a group of kids around the trash can. And I'm kind of like you. I got a little bossiness to me. Sorry, but you know, I'm not putting your stuff all out there. I think they all know that by now, okay? I call it leadership qualities. But you know, I'll walk down there and I see all these kids around this trash can, and I'm like, move! What y'all looking at? You know? And when I get there, I look in this trash can, and there are tons of pornographic pictures. Now I was 5. Now we are human beings, and at 5 years old, I looked. I was interested in what I saw because I had never seen anything like that before. So as soon as I walked away from there, Satan said to me, "You are a bad little girl. You are a bad little girl." Listen, I wanted to go home and say to my mother, "I feel bad inside. I saw something. I don't know how to process it. I didn't even know what to do." But I was so scared because I knew it was wrong. Innately, I knew it, okay? But I couldn't communicate that to my mom. Because, see, I knew. She was going to say, you're bad. I told you when you act like that and you do things like that, I don't want you around. So I had this going on. So I'm already feeling isolated. I mean, having suicidal thoughts at the age of 5. Then I see these pictures. Okay. About a week after that, I go to a classmate's house, and her brother's about 12, and he exposes himself to me. And again, I'm 5, okay? I looked. I mean, you know, I'm like, whoa. I mean, you know, I had a little brother, but that was totally different. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, and so you got to understand, okay? I'm painting a picture for y'all because I'm telling you, when these things individually seem like nothing, but when you start a momentum in something and you get that thing rolling, you just don't know where it's going to stop. So here I'm feeling like the world would be better off without me. I looked in and saw these pictures, and I'm a bad girl for doing that. And then this kid does this, and Satan kept saying to me, "You are the baddest little girl. You are bad." Now look, I'm not bashing any religion either. I was brought up Catholic, and one of the things in the faith that I took out of that was that I was never going to be good enough for God. That God did not do the completed work on the cross, that I had penance I had to do. Well, Satan said, "You're daggone right you got penance you got to do, because you are not going to ever be any good." Now, I can't, at that age, it wasn't articulated in my mind like that. Those were my feelings, okay? So I'm just feeling so bad about myself. But you know, it says that Satan is like the roaring lion. Steal, devour, destroy. Okay? Do you know that what lions do, how they attack their prey, how they get most of their food, is when an animal is giving birth. Because when a gazelle or a giraffe or an elephant, even as big as that is giving birth, they are alone. They are incapacitated. They have no one looking out for them. They leave the herd and they go and they have their babies. That is when lions attack. When you are alone. You think in your own life, when is it that you feel the deepest attack? It's when you feel like you're alone. Like you're the only one doing a nonprofit. Like, oh, everybody wanted to be around, but where are they now? Okay? And Satan says, that's because, girlfriend, you ain't got nothing going on. It's useless. It's stupid. You ain't got what it takes because you're alone. And anytime we put ourselves in a situation where we feel alone, we will be attacked. And that's when they can take you down. Now, in an atmosphere of lack, we will always find ways to compensate. Always. There's healthy things that we can do. We could go to our Bible. We could go to counseling. We could do a lot of things. There's coping mechanisms. People do exercise. People do arts and crafts. People cook. People whatever. Good things that fill you up, that put you in a place where you feel valuable. That's your coping mechanism. That's your filter. That's what you run those feelings through. But for some of us, we don't use healthy coping mechanisms. And I was one of those some of us. I didn't see healthy coping mechanisms modeled. I didn't see that at all. So I started to look for other things, okay? Drugs, alcohol, men, the whole 9 yards. But my first coping mechanism, which was probably my best friend through my entire life, what happened in that kindergarten class with Sister Rita Marie. Sister Rita Marie was mean. There ain't no other way to put it, okay? I think that thing on her head was a little bit too tight. Talk about being bound, baby. She was bound. I was in kindergarten and knew she was bound. So look, so we're in there, okay? We're in there, and it's career day. And she's asking everybody, what do your dads do? Moms at that point were mostly stay-at-home moms. We know that. I'm 54, so we know that time frame. Moms usually stayed home. Dads went to work or whatever. Okay. So, you know, the kids raise their hand. Oh, my dad's a fireman. My dad's a policeman. Well, my dad's a doctor. And I'm thinking, well, I know my dad goes to work every day. He works for the government, and he's an auditor. And I'm like, an auditor is just not glamorous. I really didn't even know what he did, okay? But I knew that he went to work every day. So I raised my hand, and I mean, you guys, it was like out of nowhere. I said, well, my dad owns a movie theater, and he can get us any movie that we want to watch in our kindergarten class. I was five, okay? You guys, I was Queen Diva for the day. Look, they were they're all around my feet. Oh my gosh, you want here? Oh, I mean, the sister was so nice to me. She let me sit up in the front of the room in a special kid's seat and everything. And it was just like, oh my gosh, all those feelings that I felt standing on the bridge in that moment, you guys, they were gone. Till Mom showed up. I don't want to jump. But listen. Okay, this is the thing. That moment, what I felt in that moment, from that lie, it gave me the ability to control what you thought about me. And see, the messages I was getting was, you're bad, you're no good. Now, I didn't know that was a spirit. I thought it meant that you all thought I was bad and no good. So if I could make you think I was good, then I could control what you thought about me. And see, you can live in your own fantasy when you can control what people think about you. How many people you know that are just so full of it? You know what I'm saying, okay? They just got so much baloney with them, okay? And you know, when you really, we were talking about this on the way up there. Look, when you really look at that person and you really examine them, see what we're talking about here, what do we open up with? We open up with, you know, when you get to know somebody, okay? So even those people that are they're so, y'all know what I mean, they're just so hard to deal with because you just want to shake the living, laugh. And the thing is, you got to look at that person and you got to remember the story I'm telling you. Hear what I'm telling you. They have not gotten rid of that spirit. It's not flesh and blood. It's spirits and principalities, okay? Something's got a hold of that person. It's the Lisa of the 5-year-old bridge. And see, this is the thing. They feel so bad about who they are that they got to do something to make you think that they're valuable. And That's a person who doesn't know who they are in Christ. The deal's done. You say, Lord, I can't, but you can. What is the script? I can do all that. I mean, come on. But as a child, you just go with what feels good, with what's working for you. You know, I mean, what Dr. Hill say? How's that working for you? Well, I'm going to tell you something, baby. That stuff was working for me good. It was working for me good. So, the desire to escape is a powerful state. We all have our coping mechanisms, but people who need to escape are those people who can only be totally obliviated from reality at times. And you don't have to just be involved in something that alters your physical, emotional state. You can be involved in, there's things like, I know people that are shoppers that seriously, they get high. Yes, they do. And I don't mean, listen, I like to shop, okay? I like to buy things. I like that too. I love a good bargain. But I'm talking about, look, I'm just going to be serious. I know people who have had to claim bankruptcy several times because they cannot deal with ordinary things. They think they got to have designer everything. Because why? Listen, I tell my daughter, I said, honey, it is never the clothes that make the woman. It's always the woman that makes the clothes. Okay, because I can go to Walmart and get me an outfit. And I can tell you what, I can wear that thing, and I can walk in and I can make you think that I come straight out of Macy's. Because it's not about what it is, it's about who you are, okay? That's what it's about. Hey, go with me to Deep Meadow. Go with Nasil to Deep Meadow. Walk into a room full of male inmates that are all dressed the same. I'll tell you what, one of them will ride, there's always a star in the group. Yeah. And it doesn't have nothing to do with his clothes, his shoes. They're all got the same. So I got into alcohol at age 14, and this is a little sidebar because this is just one of those things that I should have thought about this. So at age 14, the drinking age in DC was 18 at the time. So a friend of ours, my friend's sister, was going to buy us some wine. Now, I should have realized that I was going to have a problem with alcohol the first time that I had a chance to purchase wine. I purchased not one, not two, but 3 bottles of Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill. If we want to classify that as wine anyway. It's got to screw on. But I was 14. Now, what would possess a 14-year-old girl who I'd taken sips off my parents' drinks, and you know what I'm saying. But what would possess me to think that I needed 3 bottles of wine? But I can tell you this, when I drank that wine and it hit my system, baby, everything was all right with the world. I didn't feel bad about myself. I didn't think about no pictures. I didn't think about no unconditional love. I didn't think about nothing, but I felt good and I felt like I had some power. That was until I laid on the top of the bleachers and puked my guts out for an hour to Sweet Home Alabama. We're the dance, man. Oh yeah, it was sweet, all right. And you know, look, I can laugh about that now because see, I'm not that same person anymore. But I'm telling you, this. Do you see the picture I'm painting here? Okay, little by little by little. This is very helpful for moms, for grandmoms, for social workers, because again, you've got to understand, this just did not pop up in these people's lives a year ago. This has been a thread. And most people who have got a problem, an addictive problem with drugs or alcohol or gambling, things that immediately destroy, okay, it's because usually they are people who could be life changers, community changers. You know, you look at it and say, my gosh, you've got more potential. My drug addict son has got more potential than 10 people put together, but he just can't get himself together. Well, don't you think Satan knows that? Don't you think he knows I've got to keep him down? So I'm going to start early and weave this web. And all these little things are going to come together, and they're never going to be able to get out of this thing. So when the opportunity for me to smoke marijuana came up, it wasn't even a thing. Of course I'm going to get high. I mean, it was just like a progression of escape. It was a progression of escape. I felt much better about me when I was not, when I was using a substance. So, the thing is, when you drink and when you use drugs, it tears down any boundaries that you started with, period. You have no boundaries. It becomes all about you. You have no respect for man, you have no respect for God. So it's the alcohol, it's the drugs, and then of course what comes next? Sex. See, I had difficulty because sex and relationships were two different things for me. Two different things. And they both provided me a way of escape, but I never connected the two together. I never connected intimacy with a relationship. I did not realize that when God said that you should be married before you have sex is because there's a bond of intimacy that happens. I didn't care. I mean, I'd have sex with you first and then decided whether I was going to date you or not. That was just how I did it. Because, see, something about that made me feel really powerful. Made me feel like some little diva, okay? Like I could control these men with my body. Baby, you ain't controlling nothing, okay? Satan's got you. He's got a stronghold around your neck, and all it does is get you deeper and deeper into pain. So, I because of this, my picker was broken, y'all. If there was, garbage in a 5-mile radius of me, somebody that was living the lifestyle that was not, that was out there, look, I find it was like I was a magnet. They just moved me together, okay? I had to be noticed. I had to be noticed. I had to walk into a room and have a man notice me at all costs, or I felt like I was not doing my job, okay? Again, I was very materialistic. Everything about me was on the outside. I had to drive a certain car. And this is when I was young. Still, 17, 18, I had to look a certain way because my whole life depended on that. It was an illusion. I was intoxicated by celebrities and professional athletes, and I was very attractive, and I used what God gave me for Satan's good. And so, you ever hear that saying, you got your 15 minutes of fame? Well, shoot, I just get 15 minutes over here with this pro athlete. I get 15 minutes over here with that pro athlete. Because it made me feel like I was somebody when they walked in and I was with this person who was publicly noticed. And that is a pitiful way to live. But that's what our society is coming to. If you're a celebrity, you can do anything you want to do. It don't matter. You can get on TV half naked and spread your legs in front of a camera and they'll say it's art and she's got a great voice. You know what I say? I ain't downloading your music. That's right. Listen, I'm going to be real with y'all today, and if I offend you guys, I'm sorry, but I'm going to tell you something. I almost died to get this story, okay? And I deal with people every day that cannot get beyond themselves because nobody's willing to get dirty enough to get real with them. And I believe that we got a generation of people that are dying because nobody has the courage to say that is wrong. And it's not Lisa Kratz Thomas's principles or opinions. I read my Bible. That's all I'm saying. And anything that don't line up, I would be happy to talk with you about it. Okay? Because I believe what the Word of God says. I don't believe what politicians say. I don't believe what my friends say. I believe what God says. So, my life was pursued by my emotions. Everything I did, it had to go through the scale of how does it make me feel. And we know that feelings aren't facts, and feelings can change. Man, you can be in a bad mood, but boy, if you got a check in that mailbox, honey, ooh, your mood will change. like nothing's wrong. Yeah. Okay, so I was 18 years old. When I was 14, I dated an 18-year-old lifeguard. When I was 18, I was engaged to a 30-year-old Latino man. I was in high school, didn't participate in anything that a senior should participate in high school because, see, I was engaged to a man older than me and I was living that lifestyle. I never matured. I never matured emotionally what's supposed to happen in high school. I was more focused on them than I was on me. And it never gave me a chance to really develop, you know, the things that I needed to develop. Okay, so I graduated in 1977. Now, in the 1970s, y'all, it wasn't like it is today. There wasn't no mixed couples. There wasn't no interracial relationships, okay? It wasn't like that. If you dated someone from another race, you were called a lot of nasty names. And if you were shunned. And if you were mixed, you had to make these decisions. Am I white? Am I black? Where do I fit? I mean, it wasn't like we could all sit down at the dinner table and have something to eat. Oh, it was all great if you worked together, but it wasn't about coming into nobody's house. And I mean, it just, you know, that's how it was, okay? So, you know, when I tell you I was all about illusion, I was all about on the outside, right? So I started going to some clubs in D.C. that were predominantly black clubs. I grew up outside of D.C., Southeast Washington. I grew right up in District Heights, Maryland, in PG County. And babe, you can take me out of PG County, but how you will never take the PG County out of me. Because we're ghetto in PG County. Like I said, look, don't get me mad. I'll break ghetto on you in a minute. So I started going to these clubs that were predominantly black. Now I went with my friends. But then, oh my God, I met him. Okay, I mean him. I mean, he was just like, oh, and I mean, you know, 1970s, you know, fur coat, you know, a cowboy hat, drove up in a Mercedes. Oh wait, was that right up my alley or what? and so, you know, I started dating this man, and initially I started to date him because he was good looking, and he had some stuff. But really one of my main reasons for dating him was it was taboo. And if it's taboo, that means I'm going to get me some attention. I'm telling you. But you know what? You better be careful what you start out, because sometimes you start out one way and it ends up another way. See, I ended up falling in love with a guy. And then that was a whole big mess up in my house, okay? I mean, oh my gosh, was that a big mess up in my house, okay? But I can say this, that although I fell in love with him, I still hadn't met my true love. The one that was with me all the time. The one that helped me escape situations that I couldn't deal with. But I met that true love in about 1980, 81, and that true love was crack cocaine. You see, crack cocaine was always there for me. It always could make me feel good. I didn't have to do no talking. I didn't have to lay down. I didn't have to do nothing. All I had to do was get enough money to buy me a rock and put it in my pipe. And it would take me from where I was to a place where nobody could touch me. But things will rear their ugly head. So as I went through with, we'll call him Marcus, my tall, dark, and lovely. And he was, okay, I just got to say that again. You know, he was a hurting person too, you know, hurting people attract hurting people. And, you know, when I met him, he was doing very well. And then by the time we got halfway through, he was addicted to crack, and so was I. And he lost everything that he ever worked for. And we ended up homeless. And we ended up hopeless. And we ended up living on the streets of Washington, D.C., sleeping in Lafayette Square during the day and finding a place to go get high at night. And I can tell you that I never thought the day in Sister Rita Marie's kindergarten class that my escape would murder me. I never thought that. It didn't line up. So, you know, I had several suicide attempts with him, very serious suicide attempts. And when you get to a point where you can't go to work and you need money, I mean, you know, I smoked about probably $500 worth of crack a day. I had to make money. So I turned to what I knew, and that was prostitution. And, you know, a lot of people will, nowadays, you know, I was talking about this the other day, nowadays, you know, prostitution was standing on the corner, you know, selling your services to a man that drives up. And that still is prostitution. But there's a whole lot of prostitution going on that isn't labeled prostitution, okay? I got a neighbor that moved in a couple years ago, and she gets everything done in her house by sleeping with the man who does it. And it's not that I'm nosy, but you can't help but notice that there's a different car. They're power washing the house. The car stays overnight. If they need a fence, hey, and I was good at that too. But you know what? That ain't nothing but prostitution. Okay. See, but I was standing on the corner, exchanging $20 for service. Now I'm going to tell you, I was doing what my neighbor was doing. And I was standing on the corner. And number one, I shouldn't even be here today. I should have AIDS. I should be dead. I've had guns held to my head. I've had guns held to my back. I've had people strangle me. I should be dead, but God. But God. But the thing about prostitution is there's a lot of violence involved in it. But the thing that's even bigger about prostitution and living a lifestyle like that is every time you lie down with a man and every time you have intercourse with that man, you leave a piece of your heart with that person. I don't care how much you want to rebuke it. God says that two shall become one. That's what God says. That's what the Word of God says. So you can't separate out, well, that's only when, no. He says when man and woman are together and two become one. So that means you're one. So when you tear apart from that person, why do you think divorce is so hard? Because a little bit of your heart is left with that person and a little bit of their heart is left with you. So look, by the time I wanted to get straight, I had pieces of my heart all over town. My heart was ruptured. It was tore apart. Didn't even know what was there, to be honest with you. So you know, that's the difficulty. And commitment, I was not about no commitment. I knew what this man Marcus, I was with him for 10 years, y'all. 10 years. And I knew what commitment got me. It got me beat up. I mean, I had broken eardrums. Cocaine either makes you, it gives you paranoia. In some minor forms, you hear sirens, you think people are walking around. And then in heavier forms, you think that the person you're with is literally out to murder you or get you. And he had very severe paranoia. But of course it didn't stop me from getting high. I mean, I was like, I don't care if you got paranoia or not, I'm getting high. And what would happen is, see, we'd get high and he'd beat me. He would think I was trying to steal the drugs or I was letting somebody in or I had a gun, and he would beat me. I mean, he took me on 14th Street one time. He ripped my clothes off of me and kicked me out in the middle of the street with no clothes on. And left me there for 15 minutes. I had a broken arm. I had a broken nose. I mean, he's throwing gas on me and trying to light me on fire. You see, because I was so desperate to not feel reality that I would rather settle for that than to escape, than to get out, to get away from it. So when you talk about commitment, all I could think about was this crazy relationship I was in. I don't want no parts of no commitment because I didn't understand. And see, what was modeled at home was conditional love. So it all fell into line. Well, obviously the reason he beat me was because I wasn't doing something that he wanted me to do. I didn't realize paranoia. I wasn't going to blame nothing on my drug use. Okay? That was the thing that was helping me. I wasn't the thing that was killing me. You know what I'm So you tell somebody, well, they'll be drunk and they'll be talking to you like, oh yeah, God's really doing something. And you're just like, oh Lord, you know, you can't even see, you're so drunk you don't even know what you're talking about. You know what I mean. You've met people like that. Come on. So here I am. I don't want no form of commitment. I don't want nothing to do with any of that kind of stuff, okay? And, you know, I just got to the point where I got arrested for writing bad checks, not for prostitution, for writing bad checks. And I served a year in jail. And even during that year, I would have been in there longer, but, you know, I had this thing. I told you. I was a magnet. If there was a piece of junk in the area anywhere near me, it was going to find me and it was going to stick to me. And my court-appointed attorney came in one day. And y'all, he smelled good. He had a nice jacket on. Well, before you know it, boyfriend was bailing me out. Well, let me tell you what I did. I got out of jail. I walked across the streets of Pizza Hut with Marcus. I wrote a bad check. I drank a pitcher of beer, and I was back at the crack house in 2 hours. And about 20 minutes after that, he landed a punch to my head that knocked me on the floor. This is God right here. I got up. I'm still high, okay? I got up and I said, oh, I'm done with this. I packed my stuff up and I walked out. And I sat on the corner. I sat on the street corner. And I was crying. I said, look, you either change me or you take me, because I can't live like this no more. Now, I did have a big epiphany. It's not really when I got saved, but I started to understand that something was out there. So long story made short, friend helped me. I ended up sleeping behind houses so I could get it. I worked in an Italian restaurant. I'd sleep in Arlington behind these houses. I'd go to the Exxon. I'd brush my teeth. I'd go to work until I had enough money to rent a room. And, you know, I could have gone back and stood on the corner and made money. But I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I was working as a temporary, and I met this man. I know that's hard for y'all to believe. But I met this man. And he was different than any other man, really, that I had met. In my previous time, I would have used and abused him because he was really a nice guy. And I wanted to go out with him. And at the time, I was living with my court-appointed attorney. And he goes, you know, Lisa, he said, I don't date, women that are living with their boyfriends. And I'm thinking, what? Crazy? So I ended up moving out. And the first call I made was to him. And I said, can we go out to dinner tonight? We went out to dinner, and of course, I immediately said, can I come home with you? And he's like, I'm like 42 years old, and he says, I'm not really up for a one-night stand. He says, I'm looking for a relationship in my life. So, of course, I think, he's gay. He don't know all this. Because why? Because what had I done? How did I get where I was? What was my thinking about? It was the pornographic pictures 30 years before that I saw that said, you're a bad girl, there ain't nothing good about you. And you can take everything away, man, and you still have those same thoughts, okay? So, I end up moving in with him a short period of time after that. Because I said, okay, I'll try this commitment thing. Well, one night I got a call from my court-appointed attorney to sign some papers for probation or something, which was a big lie. I went, we got in a fight, and I ended up at the crack house. I had 9 months of sobriety. I was off drugs 9 months. I was drinking a little bit, but I had 9 months off drugs. And I was back at the crack house. And I was supposed to go with this man away for the weekend. Didn't know where I was. I left Friday morning. And by Sunday, I had emptied my bank account. I had sold all my jewelry, and I was right back to where I was. So in the same clothes that I left for work in Friday morning, I picked up the phone and I called him. And I said, I had my car, but I just couldn't drive. I said, can you come and get me? And I told him where I was, and I sat there, and I'm like, I was just bracing myself, right? And I see his truck driving down the street, and I'm like, here we go. It's going to be another get your crap and get out. I've had enough of you. I mean, the same thing, year after year, man after man. So he pulls up, and I get in the car, and I'm just bracing myself. I'm thinking, where am I going to go? And he looks at me and he puts his hand on my knee. And he says, Lisa, I said, what can I do to help you? He said, I hate seeing you like this. He said, why do you keep doing this to yourself? What is it in you that tells you that you don't have any value? And you guys, nobody, what did I tell you? Nobody in 30 years ever, not once ever came to me and said, I want to help you. They said, you're worthless. You don't live up. You don't measure up. Well, I'm happy to tell you that that man, his name is Tom, and he's my husband, and he has been for 22 years. Don't ever despise the days of small beginnings. Don't ever think God will put somebody in your life or in your loved one's life. Thank you. He will do it. And I still get emotional about that, because where would I be today? I wouldn't be here. I might be 10 feet under, man. Okay? But you see, God will do. He will do. Somebody was praying for me.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Somebody was praying for me. And you know, this is the one thing that I remember God saying to me. Because I said, I got in the car when we got home. I was involved in 12-step. I was going. And this is what I heard God say to me. Today you experienced what I do daily. People get in crisis. They cry out to me. I try to lead them to a solution. But they are so absent of faith and blinded by their crisis that they can't see past it. I have always had your best interest at heart, because people are paralyzed by fear instead of leaning on me in faith, and then they miss their help. I could have run right over him. I could have said, this is not what I want. But somewhere inside of me, I knew that my run was over. My run was over. The gig was up, baby. I had nowhere to go. And I'm not saying physically inside. I could not come up with a solution, and I am the solution girl. I got an answer to every situation you can come up with, but I couldn't find an answer to this situation. So, what is it that we need help from, and how do we promote right teaching? Those are the two things that are going to come from the story. What is it that we need help from, and how do you get and promote right teaching? Because some people need help, but they get New Age teaching. You see what I'm saying? You know, some children need discipline, and they get a reward. You know, it's some people are bad, and they get the job elevation. Okay, we're not talking about that. We're talking about what do we need help with, and how do we promote the right teaching? We know the right teaching comes from the Lord. That's the right teaching. So, what do we need help from? Is 1 Timothy 1, 8 through 11. We know that the law is good when used correctly. For the law was not intended for people who do what is right. It is for people who are lawless, rebellious, ungodly, sinful, and consider nothing sacred. They defile what is holy. They kill their mother and father and commit murders. Now, that's none of us. The law is for people who are sexually immoral, who practice homosexuality, who are slave drivers, liars, promise breakers, or who do anything else that contradicts wholesome teaching that comes from the glorious good news entrusted to me by our blessed God. That is 1 Timothy in the New Testament of the Bible. Now, if you don't like what I said, take it up with God.
That's right.
I am so serious. Because look, we might not relate with being murderous or being ungodly or being blasphemy, okay? But how many times have you broken a promise? How many times do you lie? And I mean, listen, I practice honesty. Do I do it 100% of the time? I am a human being. But I am always aspiring, God, take out of me whatever it is that I feel I can't do the things that you died for me to do. So that is what we need help from. We need help from that kind of those actions, those thinkings, this coexistence crap. I mean, if I see another one of those bumper stickers on the back of somebody's car, okay, coexistence is fine. We can live together. But I'm not going to believe, receive, or accept anything that you do that goes against the Word of God. I'm not going to do it.
That's right. That's
Now,
right.
I will love you. If you are homosexual, I've got a lot of friends that are gay. I will love you. God loves you. You know? And I got a lot of friends that are liars and gossipers. God will love you. God will help you. Personally, they're both sins. You know? And if you want to hold one above the other, that's on you. There is no differentiation of those sins in the Word of God. What God does say is sins against children. That's differentiated out. You should have a millstone tied around your neck and put in the bottom of the river, okay? I'm just telling you what I read. And if you think I'm wrong, go to a theologian, okay? That's all I can tell you. This is my perception, how I've lived my life, and what I see in, I've been in 15 prisons in the last 4 months. Just kind of got an idea of what's going on in that whole realm, okay? So look, it's not that you don't love those people. It's not that you don't coexist but who was it? I love what you said. I want to be the salt, a shining light. Well, how are you going to be the salt or the shining light if everything everybody does is just acceptable to you? You can say, baby, I love you, but let me just give you a little point. You ever see a woman that comes in that's dressed inappropriately? Oh, you stand back and talk about her. But what you're going to say, listen, baby, let me just tell you this. Let me just tell you this. It's not appropriate to come to church with a short dress like that. Or your breasts hanging out. Now, if they don't like you because of it, oh well. You got to be willing to take that hint. Do you understand what I'm saying? You got to be willing for them not to like you. For you to say, no, there ain't no coexistence. You ain't looking like a little hoe walking up in the sanctuary. I'm sorry. It doesn't mean God doesn't love you, but it means there are standards that we live by to show the world that we are holy. I mean, you think I'm going to go into Deep Meadow with the clothes? I would never even wear this because it shows my breast. I'm just being honest with you. Now look, it's okay you work there every day, but I stand in front of 40, 50 men, okay? I wear a jacket. I wear pants that are loose so you can't see anything. Now, I'm just saying. Because what would that tell them if I came in there, look. That tell them I know what she's saying, but that ain't what she's showing. Exactly. I mean, come on, okay? Really, this is the deal. So we know the things that are wrong. So how do we promote right teaching? Here we go to our scripture that you read today. Titus 2, 1, 3 through 5. He says, as for you, Titus, promote the kind of living that reflects wholesome teaching. Okay, he just said the kind of living that reflects wholesome teaching. We talked about that in Timothy. We know what isn't wholesome. So what is? Teach the older women to live in the way that honors God. They must not slander others or be heavy drinkers. Instead, they should teach others what is good. These women must train the younger women to love their husbands and love their children, to live wisely and to be pure, to work in their homes, to do good, and to be submissive to their husbands. Then they will not bring shame on the word of God. That word pure today is a dirty word. It's a dirty word. People think if you're pure, that you're weak. People think you don't have it going on. You don't got no swag. You don't got nothing with you if you're pure. I tell you what, I got a 19-year-old daughter. She's still a virgin. Amen. She's studying forensic chemistry with a minor in biology. Yeah. And you know what girlfriend said to me? Because see, she's been with me the whole time, okay? I mean, the whole time. She said, there is nothing going to take me off my path. I am determined and focused, and I see what happens to women when they sleep with their boyfriends And if you think I'm going to have a couple kids and live in your basement the rest of my life, you got another thing. And that is not. Listen, that's because we've had people that lived in our home that had nowhere to go. And they loved on them, and they supported them. But what that showed them was, I got to do what God tells me to do. Okay? What God tells me to do. And what God says is, I think he said it up there, don't practice those things that are immoral. Now, the other part of this that gets everybody, most women, is to be submissive to their husbands. Now, first of all, the word is husband. The word is husband. The word is husband. Husband. Commitment. Covenant. Husband. There ain't no man, I don't care what he doing for you, that you are to be submissive to. You're supposed to be spiritually submissive to your authority, to your covering, to your pastors. Spiritually submissive. You're supposed to be submissive to the laws of the land, to government. If you're not supposed to, smoke in a restaurant, you can't smoke in a restaurant. You got to be submissive to those laws. You are not supposed to be submissive to a man who is not your husband. In any way, shape, or form. I don't care what bills he's paying for you, okay? Because if he really, really, truly, he should marry you. He should marry you, period. That's the end of story. So we talk about being submissive. Now look, you think I had any problem with being submissive? Come on, just take a guess. And if you knew my husband, okay, Barbara knows my husband. My husband is the kindest, nicest, most hospitable man. He does everything to make my life wonderful. And I'm not even exaggerating, okay? He is wonderful. I've never worried about anything since I married that man. And we've had some ups and downs, but I never had to worry about nothing. But sometimes people can mistake kindness for weakness. And so, because I think that I'm just going to railroad through everything, I'm just going to tell him exactly how it's going to be. And I did that for a while. And one day he said, "Woman, I just about had enough of you." That's what he said. See, but God knew that I needed a man to let me work through that because of conditional love, because of domestic violence, okay, and because of how I felt about myself. But I'm telling you, when things got lined up, boyfriend said, "I've had enough of you. I've done everything that I said I would, and I will support you in anything, but you will not treat me the way you've been treating me." And when there's an issue in my house, if there's something that needs to be solved, we do it together, but he makes the final. I don't go just buy a car. Yes, I could go buy a car. I mean, I got the credit or whatever, I don't just go put carpeting in my house because that's what and trust me, I'm wanting that really bad right now. But I don't do that because my husband has the last word. He has the last word. Someone has got to be in charge. And the Lord said, it's your husband. He's your armor bearer. He goes out first. He fights the demons. That's what a real man does, baby. So in Ephesians it says, that you're supposed to submit to your husbands just like to Christ, and he's supposed to cover you just like the church, okay? Submitting to another person is often misunderstood. People think it's, again, weakness, okay? But you're not a doormat. And the Word of God also says that every knee will bow one day. Every knee will submit to Jesus Christ one day. I don't care if you're a Muslim, a Hindu, a woo-woo, I don't know. But you will submit to Jesus Christ one day.
That's right.
Whether you think you are or not, you will. Christ submitted to the Father. Did he not? He says, if you could take this cup from me, please. But if not, I will do what you've sent me to do. See, he could have called 10,000 angels down on his own and swept him right up out of Gethsemane. But he said, no, I will submit to you, Lord, to you, Father, because you know more than I do. You have prearranged this thing. So husbands, you know, as a wife, this means you're willing to follow your husband's leadership in Christ. As a man, it means he puts aside his own interests to take care of you. But this is the thing. Submission is rarely a problem in homes where both the man and the woman have got a relationship with Christ. Because if you know who you are in Christ, there ain't nobody that can tell you anything else. It's like, look, you can tell me what you want. And there's a respect that comes with that. But I was going to say this. If we don't do what the Bible tells us to do, we will never get the blessings that the Bible tells us we will get. We will live in mediocrity. So you say, well, you know, I had to learn how to be submissive. I learned in 12-step. I learned in Bible studies. To this day, I've got people who I call on. You know, I didn't tell y'all this little tidbit, but, you know, I did in 2004, I founded a nonprofit organization called New Vision. And it was a transitional home for women that were reentering from incarceration. And, of course, everybody said to me, well, Lisa, nobody's going to give you money. You're a convicted felon. I said, well, you know what? You just lied to me, okay? So, do y'all know Warren Buffett? You've heard of Warren Buffett, right? He is the second richest man in the world, only because he gave $50 billion of his money to Bill Gates, who's now the richest man in the world. Well, Warren's sister just happens to live in Fredericksburg, Doris Buffett. Did I tell y'all I live in Fredericksburg? Yeah. Oh, his sister lives in Fredericksburg, and she's a philanthropist, means she likes to give money to people. So let me tell you what, when I started this whole thing, I knew it was going to take me some money, okay? We got a little bit here, a little bit there, we had a place. I started following Doris Buffett around. When she'd give money, when she'd be at a breakfast or at a groundbreaking, shoot, I'd show up, y'all. Because I'm just the kind of person you can't tell me no. I mean, I will figure out my way, but I'm going to keep going. So I'm standing next to her one day, right? And I said, Miss Buffett, my name is Lisa Thomas, and I've got a program for women coming out of prison. She went, and she said, who helped you? Who was your mentor? And I said, well, that's a very detailed question. Do you think we could meet and talk about it? Well, to make a long story short, in the end, Doris Buffett gave New Vision, which I was the founder. I founded it and I ran it, okay? And by the way, I have a high school education. But I have got an education from the master himself. Okay? When it was all said and done, Doris Buffett gave us $500,000. And for a 7-year period, I raised $1.5 million. We helped about 3,000 women, and we had for the women who lived in the home, we had a 0% recidivism rate. Not one of those women for 2 years after the home closed did they go back to incarceration. And it was money. You know, people rather give money to puppies than ex-offenders. I mean, you know, SPCA, I'll give you $20 a month. Ex-offender, I don't think so. But see, I had to learn how to submit to other people because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to write.